I think I want to fix this light. Could you fix it for me while I'm here, please?
Are you the one that...
Kind of the same thing where it's going to kind of angle in,
I don't know, I've never been to this.
and then it's going to angle inwards. Like, turn it this way a little bit. The other way. Sorry, angle out. I think that's good.
Okay, it looks good.
Yeah. Just wanted good lighting.
Are they gonna be
Is there two? There's one more person. Oh yeah, Miss Barbara. That's who it is. Perfect. It looks good.
Just a question, are you gonna be standing there?
I believe she is. Yes.
Okay, then I gotta...
Oh,
because
I am. Sorry.
Oh.
No, I'm just gonna stand back there.
Oh,
So you're
'cause
fine.
I'm like,
Oh, okay.
I'm
You're fine.
right
Okay.
behind you. That's all I'm gonna see.
Yeah, as long as you're just watching be so it back doesn't there. cut. Okay, yeah. 'Cause I'm gonna be with the kids.
Is this going to be recorded? Is it going to be recorded?
Oh yes, it's live.
Do you know if there's a way to cut the music?
Oh yes.
And then we do have two microphones. So the microphone, whoever speaks behind the mic, so that
Por si no haces. Están trabajando, creo que están trabajando.
Test. Test.
I'm trying.
Ricky, get ready for the picture.
I know. She keeps on moving.
I can go up.
Oh, no, you're okay. You're... They kept moving and I couldn't... They keep moving. I'm good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We just want to say good morning to everyone that's here with us right now. Thank you for being here. And even those that are tuning in live, thank you for being here. We're so happy to have you here with us today. Welcome to What Anna Said podcast. Today we have an incredible panel of women here beside me. And so we have a platform with Pacific Islander women, African American, Hispanic, European backgrounds, and each of these women bring their own experiences and their stories for us to celebrate here today. And so in honor of Women's International Month, we just want to thank you, a shout out to Dawson Morris here in Hearst, Texas, for creating this space for us to have this dialogue with each other this morning, and also a special thank you to Ricky for bringing all these incredible women together this morning. So thank you, Ricky. And so before we begin, we're just going to go around the table and we're just going to introduce ourselves. Just quickly, no pressure, just say hello to everybody here. So we'll begin on the side of the table with our beautiful Barbara.
My name is Barbara Freeborn.
Thank you, Barbara. You're so ready.
My name is Barbara Freeborn. I am with the Clubhouse for Special Needs. We're a nonprofit in Bedford, Texas, and we work with teen and young adults with intellectual development disability. We're doing this to really love their children. So, come over to the Clubhouse for Special Needs.
I'm Ricky Zamora. I'm with the Mountain Girl Club, and I'm also the manager.
And I'm so grateful to be invited to this panel. Thank you.
And I am Edna Fry. I'm an instructor for a homeschool community called the Little Champs Academy. I am VP for Mid-Cities Pacific Islanders Club, and I am also the co-host of What Honest and Podcast.
Thank you, Edna. And my name is Anna Fuahala, and I am president of the Kasitati Foundation and the president of the Mid-Cities Pacific Islanders Lions Club, and also co-host of What Anna Said podcast.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Oppenheimer with Mary Kay. Mary Kay girl.
Hi, I'm Tony Whitfield. I am a mom of 6. I also do hair and lash extensions. I will do them soon. So yes, that's me.
I'm Teresa Kaluka, you can call me TK. I am founder and operator of the Market Tech Group, where I help small businesses get more visibility online with websites and SEO.
Thank you, ladies. So let's begin the conversation, and Edna, I'll have you take us away.
I just have one thing, ladies, if you guys could speak, hold the mics closer to your mouth. For some reason, we can hear you here, but on the mic, we can come
Okay.
So just to piggyback behind what Anna for Hala said, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for those who are joining us live. And thank you for this wonderful audience who are here with us today and supporting these beautiful ladies who are here on this table. And again, thank you for being a representation for International Women's Month of 2026. Wow, what a great time it's going to be, okay? So again, thank you all for joining us. What will be an inspiring conversation with one another, honoring the voices, also honoring your voices and stories and strength of women across the culture, across the nation. Let this table just be a safe place. This is not a table of confessions. This is let us be a place, hopefully, as we leave today, a place of sisterhood. So be as comfortable as you would like, because the people who are watching, we're hoping that you would take away from anything that you guys are sharing. So whatever you're thinking that, maybe you might have a concern that, I don't know if this is the correct way to say is, your story is your story, and there's always going to be someone out there who needs to hear this, especially as a woman in today's society. So thank you all, as businesswomen, being here, but again, we're all mothers and sisters, grandmothers and aunties, so I'm so proud of you. Thank you for saying yes to being here today on What Anna Said podcast. I am going to open up the first question for today. Sally, are you guys, is this a good, louder? Okay. All right. I naturally talk softly, so please let me know. So the first topic that we're going to get into today is about identity and culture. And the first question I have for you ladies is, what did your culture teach you about being a woman?
So, being African American woman in, am I doing this right?
Yes.
Thank you. I would say what I experienced was that women were very strong. You really didn't have the option to be weak, you know. If you were having difficulty in school, you know, pull those panties up, girl, and just get busy working, you know. It was, you didn't have the option to really show a lot of vulnerability, right? You needed to be strong. And that was something that I always saw. My mom was very strong. I had a church background, so my dad was a minister, and we grew up with a lot of women in the church, and I always admired them because they would just say what they meant. They said they didn't hold back, you know, and you knew where you stood. And that was always a really good thing. But also, my mom, for instance, really took care of the family. That was very important. That was her role. She remembered everybody, you know, and of course the church people as well. But you know, that was your responsibility, making sure people were cared for but they needed to stay in line too. You needed to do your part. And so that was sort of my experience as a child growing up.
My identity growing up in a Black culture was taught that you show up who you are, not how you feel. So like she said, the very strong women, it was like you really didn't see a lot of shy Black women, to be honest. They were very bold, very strong, very much showing up as who they're supposed to be. And there was a lot of single mothers, like in the Black culture. For some reason, it was a lot of single mothers, unfortunately. So it was a lot of pushing down what you feel and being a mom, being working moms. Like most of the time, they work 2 jobs, or work jobs, and then also took care of the family. So it was a lot of showing up who you are, and kind of suppressing how you feel for the moment. So that was pretty much a lot of the identity of growing up in the Black culture.
Okay, so I grew up in Mexico, so I was raised, born, everything in Mexico. So I moved several years here to Texas. So my experience growing up there and the culture of a Mexican woman was kind of thorn in some ways. It was conflicting in other ways. So I was raised to be intelligent, strong, doing things independently, but at the same time, I needed to be staying at home. So it was a culture of you can do, you're empowered, do what you're dreaming to do, like your dreams, but not too much. So yes, but here's what we're expecting for you as a woman to be when you're grown up. So as you are a child, you can show your emotions. So it was more on our culture, women were we grew up to be very free in terms of how to express our emotions, but at the same time, we couldn't do too much because when we grow up and we're in a work job environment, that is not what we see. So it was conflicting to say, well, what is my place? Do I need to thrive in my personal career, or should I just stay in line and do what needs to be? A mom expected to stay at home and work, not on a work, but your work is to stay at home. And that was kind of the conflicting part. That's where I grew up, that Hispanic community, trying to find, yes, the women are respected, but at the same time, no. So that was kind of my experience.
Me growing up with older parents was a bit different. So growing up with a very much older father, I was really what I can to at least he was like, you know what, always do your best, do for people, and be your own person. I guess they be very independent, but you have somebody that do what you have to do. And take care of your family. It was different because I grew up with much older parents where I was I'm an old soul, so I'm very old, very.
So I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. My dad is a very strong personality, and I feel like when I think back to my youth, it was kind of that you're seen but not heard kind of situation. And it was around making sure that dad would have time to relax after work, and so don't make a fuss. Heard things like, "What are you crying for? I'll give you something to cry about." Not that anybody did, but it was kind of like, what's the big deal, stop your crying. So I don't think we were as moving with emotions as I am with my kids now, where we allow them to express their emotions and be sad or be happy. And so I grew up very quiet, being shy because I didn't know how to talk to other people. And, we grew up in an environment where the mothers were expected to work, so it wasn't a big deal to try to go unless they stayed home. But we didn't talk about being an entrepreneur or being a president. It was get a good job and stay there for the rest of your life in situations.
Yes, last bit. Okay, so I was born and bred here in Texas. So I had a very strong mother that ran the house, she was my softball coach, my campfire leader, our PTA mom, so I had a role model to just truly guide me growing up. And so I, in turn, am like that. I have 6 children, and I am the softball coach. I was always the team mom that went along with my kids, and that I have several home-based businesses. So not only am I American Eagle, I have a children's-based with just with big friends, so we do consignment sales. I work part-time at a florist. I work part-time for our insurance company, so I am on my own, but running several businesses at one time. So strong-willed. So there you go.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Suzette. And between you and Tony, you guys are showing us up with your 6 kids here. But that's true. That speaks to the strength and just how incredible women really are. And listening to all the stories and your backgrounds, and I'm hearing a lot of recurring themes about, maybe not being given that freedom to express yourself or to feel what you're feeling, but also the responsibility and the weight of carrying that, even across our different cultures here. I know for us as Pacific Islanders and Tongan women, women are really central to maintaining our home. And there's a great value in women are deeply respected and protected in our culture. The highest ranking person in a family is, in our culture, it's called a fahu. And a fahu is a woman. And so even down to her brothers and his entire line serving her, and just there's so many things that come from that. And so when it's done beautifully the right way, it's a beautiful tradition. In our culture, it's like that. But even with that, women in our culture, they also represent the honor of the family. And their behavior reflects on the family's name and reputation. And when I think about that, I think about Mulan in the scene where they come to call her father to go to war. And she raises her voice because she's telling him, my father's too old, you can't take him. And in that moment, the father was filled with so much shame. He said, you dishonored us, by speaking out. Even though that was a great thing, and she did that as a daughter, trying to protect her dad, she brought shame to the family. And in that same way, even though it's a beautiful thing, to be honored in that way in the culture, it also comes with its own weight and responsibilities. So thank you guys so much for sharing that.
I know that as Ricky had brought this idea of bringing us together in diversity, but I know you wanted to make sure, you said something that is already showing already, is that we're so different, yet we're all so similar. And I was wondering where that was going to show up in the podcast today. And that just came off from just starting off with Barbara. So yes, thank you so much for every one of you for sharing your story and how beautiful that is. As I was talking to Anna, well, when I met my husband, we were dating, and we went to the airport. And there was a huge population of Polynesians who work at the airport. And when my husband met me, he said, whoa, you are stubborn. You're a stubborn woman. And then, and he didn't know better, but the more that he got to know more Polynesian women in the work field, he said, I know your people are so stubborn. All of you are stubborn. And we know that, and we say this all the time, that our women, yes, they're stubborn, but they're so strong, so headstrong, so strong-willed. And I think about my mother. I think about as we're talking about, I think about people who has inspired us, which will be the next question coming up, is that I grew up with a mother who did the best that she could do with what she had. And I look back, and I remember one time she apologized to me about just the way that she raised us. And I looked at her and said, thank you for trying. Thank you for never giving up on us. Thank you for, like she said, growing up with so many years of her being a single mother raising us. She said, no matter what hardship I went through, I just knew that I had to have all my children with me. And so when I think about my culture, and I think about the strong will that our people have, to my mother, I say thank you so much for not giving up, being headstrong. But let me take this baton from you and carry it on, because that is what I'm going to do. Thank you, Mother. And that goes into the next question today. I'm hoping that you guys have brought that woman with you today. Who you're going to think of, who you thought about, who has inspired you to be the woman who you are today. Whether it's your mother, whether it was a friend, whoever that was. What is something What is something powerful you received from the woman that came before you?
There were many things, and when I read that question, like, oh my God, how can I start? But I grew up watching my mom. My parents had their own business, and I always saw my mom busy working, but without the sense of like she's so busy. No, I was really admiring that she was outside, and that generation, she was outside of the norm. She had the business, and even my dad, funny, but he was always saying, well, you are the owner, just tell me what, and I couldn't understand what he meant, you are the owner, and you tell me what to do, like, what is this decision? Now I understand more. But seeing how my mom, despite the traditions, she came along with what was in her heart and what she wanted to do. That was the first example that I saw when I was a child. Like, you follow your heart, persevere in life, and things will come through. And I think that is what has been most of the biggest lessons in my life. Be true to yourself, true to your heart, listen to your intuition and follow it. And despite remove the noise. Because there's going to be a lot of noise around it, and even in my mind as well, like my noise. It doesn't stop, but by following that and really centering on what I want to do, what is the call that I have, gives me better sense of this is the way, and makes me be a better mom, a better wife, a better, hopefully, my husband is here, a better wife, a better friend now. Like, I'm learning more as I grow, and women like that have been a great inspiration. I started with my mom being that example of just do what she was doing and be very energized. And I remember all the time when I was very frustrated or negative. I don't want to use the word drama because I don't use it with my girls. That's a thing that I don't do. But I was raised that way. I was so dramatic, and then my mom was like, "What is the worst that can happen?" And now sometimes I do think like, "Well, there's a lot more." But at that time, it really gives a sense of confidence of saying, "Yeah, that's true." Like putting this sense in like perspective and go for it and try it. So I can, with that question, I can talk a long time, but I'll stop here.
Just like probably a lot of people on the panel, my mom was, I'm gonna try not to cry. My mom has been the perfect example of a strong woman. And I remember as a young child, I was always very observant. Like, I was always looking at my mom. I would watch her do things. And I remember thinking as a child, like, wow, this is impossible. Like, this is not normal. My mom would cook every day. She had 6 kids, 5 boys, 2 girls. She didn't grow up with affection or like as an affectionate person, but she showed us so much affection from what she mustered up from learning about God. We grew up very deeply rooted in the Bible. And we didn't go to church too much towards the beginning, but my mom was very strict on us learning the Bible and learning about it. So she also taught us a lot of things. Watching her go to work, come home, do all the things. She never complained. I never really saw my mom cry. But there were times where I snuck and I watched her before she go to bed. And I saw how she fought her battles, you know. And that taught me so much growing up with my own kids, living my life the way that I do now. I see how she fought. She had to fight on her knees, warring a lot of the time. So, doing it by herself also. I just always saw this is not normal. This is not this love should be shared. But she's dealing it with so much grace, like showing up for all the soccer and basketball, cheerleading. My mom showed up. Like, I had friends complaining that their parents never showed up. My mom was there. Like, my mom was always there. And that's what led me a lot in how I handle my kids and my nieces, and even my friends. Like, showing up was a big thing for me. And that's another powerful thing I got from my mom.
All right, well, I'll take it while the rock is here. So, like I said before, my mom, and I think that's a common thing we're seeing here on this panel is that our moms are strong, and our moms are guidance for us, and just my compass. She still is to this day. She lives with me, and she's still that matriarch that God's our family. So, like showing up for the softball and campfire and everything, my mom was always there for us. So that was the only example I had to how to be a mom, and so therefore I took it and ran with it. So I give for my children. So.
So I grew up with older parents. My mother who was still working, but she was, so regardless, she had good days or bad days. I grew up with my mother always having that regardless if she was off, she was there. So I go back. Bad days when I was and when I was having a real different nature, I don't have so when I have a days, I go.
So this was a weird question for me because I think my mom is very soft spoken. She's not going to cope with a lot of stuff. I don't think she ever yelled at me. She was always there to support and say, yeah, let's go to Girl Scout camp, or I'll drive you to youth group, or she was the one that set the standard that we will go to church every Sunday and don't tell me that you don't want to go. We'll just go. And I grew up in Catholic elementary school in 8th grade, and so I had kind of that good standard faith in my family. And I think looking back on it, she is very strong in that I look and I say, she put up with so much. And she didn't talk back, and she didn't say, no, I'm not doing this. And I think that's a very strong way to be, is to allow people in your family to be who they are and find a way to work with them. And she was still there to support to support the family in a way that she could while still working and still all around them and all that kind of stuff. I think, you know, like, I'm so lazy now, like, I would not be able to just do it and get it done. And I complain about it and I would be sad about it. And she did not. Like, she did it. And I think maybe that comes from a place of the expectations that she had, her wanting to build a family, certain things. So she's, you know, quiet strength is kind of what I take from her.
Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. I love that you brought that perspective. Because shape does come in many different strength does come in many different shapes and forms. And so I love that you saw her strength, even through her quiet, soft-spoken demeanor, that you see it as what it is, and that's strength. Because it takes a lot of strength to let your kid figure it out, okay? As a mom, it takes a lot of strength. I just want to intercede and stop them and do what I think is right, but that took a lot of strength for your mom to allow you to figure it out yourselves, to walk alongside you and just make sure you're okay. But like you said, everything she wasn't like loud about it, or you know, to say no, do this, do that. So I love that you see that as a strength that it truly is. And thank you guys so much for bringing your different, you know, sharing what your mom. I love hearing about people's moms. I love hearing whatever that story is. I love hearing it. Just thinking about Suzette, you talk about your mom and you literally mirroring her through, you know, what you're doing today, even as a coach, and in all those ways. And I love that. And how you said even she's with you now today. And I think that that's beautiful, and I think that that's the way that life should be lived. And in our culture, we do a lot of that too. So, you know, at the end of their age, our parents are with us, and I love that. I love hearing that. And thank you so much, Tony, for sharing that. That was so beautiful. And the way that your mom carried you guys, and even you saying you never saw her break down and cry. But as a mother today, you know that those things happen. And so for her to have that time in front of you guys, you know, to be strong, because she was mirroring the walk that she wanted you guys to take. And so thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And you're doing it, and I know Tony in personally, and so you're doing such a great job of that. Tony pulls up with all 6 of her kids, and she adds my kids to her count, and she corrals all of them. Yes, and she takes care of all the kids at the church we go to. And Tony does such a great job. Just the patience and love that you have, and I see exactly where that comes from. So thank you for sharing that. Even Lisbeth, sharing about how your mom had to walk with you through your drama and all of those things as a child. But that's what I love about moms, is because we know our children and we know exactly how to speak to them. This one I probably got to shake them up, but this one I have to speak to softly. And so even your mom comes to you like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, and to her she's like, what I'm saying is under my protection, nothing is gonna happen. But what's the worst that's gonna happen? And I love that you share that. And even you seeing that, a picture of your mom doing stuff that was out of the box. You know, she wasn't following the status quo or what society was telling her to do. She did those things. She already broke the mold so that you could walk in that freely. So she removed those barriers for you. And I love that you shared that. That's so important. And even with you sharing, even with your elderly parents, Ricky, and you still seeing how important faith was. I love that you had that example. And you said even today, that's something that you hold close to you. Even as you go throughout life, that's something that has never departed from you. And I love that our parents are instrumental in that way, giving us things that we can take, you know, because they really are setting us up to live a world without them. And so those lessons that they leave with us is so important and so beautiful. And in the same way, you know, moving here with my mother, she was a young mom when she had all of us, and my parents did everything. And so just seeing the way that she took care of us and she held it down at home, and just, I speaking for all women, just being so resourceful with the little that we had. And, you know, Mom, if you're watching this, I just want to say, I just want to say, you know what, Mom, thank you for making the best out of nothing. And thank you so much for bringing magic to my childhood, Mom, because you were the magic. And so, that's enough talking for me.
I'll take it from here. I'll do my best. I should have maybe saved that question for last. I had, as each of you all was speaking, I saw my mother in every category. And I think that's interesting how our mother was that woman for every one of us. So yes, thank you for sharing. My mother was resilient. My mother was also very soft-spoken. And I also still live in my mother because I'm a culture, that is a thing that we do. And I love that some people will come up to me and say, oh, I love Polynesian people. I heard that there is no, what's it called, home? There is no nursing home. And you're right. They come back and they live with us. We take care of them. But I love that it's a beautiful thing for other cultures to recognize that with ours. My mother, like I said, was also resilient and strong and also very soft-spoken. In the years that she was a single mother, I know how hard it was for her to ask my sibling, my sister, okay, she was here, to ask us to have jobs to help with the financial burdens. And looking back, I can't believe how hard, I can only imagine how hard that must have been for her to ask us for help. At that time, I was in high school and also a full-time worker. But we loved our mother. We knew the situation, the unfortunate situation that was in our family, and we just knew how to step in for her just as much as she stepped in for us. And as Tony was speaking, yes, we woke up to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and she was, when she was able to get a job to help out, she was making hers as well. She always made sure, when we used to work at the airport together, me and Anna, we are childhood best friends. And my mother used to just cook us Thanksgiving meal and drop it off at work for us because working at the airport, there was no day off on holidays. We are at the airport working to take care of the passengers. And so we loved all of the workrooms and being able to share our food with everyone. And so I love to see the answers from all of you and being able to see the mother that we all get to be who we are today. One of the things that I heard from Tony that touched my heart is that because my mother specifically was in survival mode, communication in the way that we do it today was almost not there for us. It was just do. I was working, I'd come home, I'd check on the family, and go to bed and repeat. Get through school and repeat. Affectionate. That was, I'm over here, she says I love it to her family all the time. And I'm like, I'm so jealous of you. That is something that me and my siblings, if we fight, that is how we say we love you. Okay? And so, so that goes into the next question with all these beautiful answers, because it is powerful what you guys received from your mother. And so the next question is, what is something you've chosen to do differently for the next generation?
First of all, I want to say, my mother also was a big influence on me. I have a similar experience that you have. My father was born in 1912. Ovary. Wow, you beat me. I've never met anybody who beat me. Wow, that's me. And then my mother was 40 when I was born. So my oldest sister, yes, she beat me on everything. My oldest sister was 20 years older than me, so I get that dynamic of growing in the older home and having those different cultural mindsets. It was really wonderful. And so I think, excuse me, for me with my mom, she was always, my dad was a minister, so she was always praying. And there was always something drama going on in the church that nobody else knew about, but I always knew about. And she would be she would be criticized, and she would be, because she was the public face, and people would constantly attack her. And she would always take that with so much grace. She would not lash out, she would just quietly go back and pray. And she would have this special way that she would go in and she would pray. And things started changing. And she really taught me that prayer, it's everything. And when you say, what did you do different? I almost want to say, what do I do the same, that I hold on to the prayer life. Through my ups and downs, I think that I always go back to God. I always go back to my knees. I always go back to that part that I learned from my mom. But when I think of what I would do differently, I think that looking at how she did suffer I kind of stand up a little more. I didn't grow up with a lot of siblings my age, and so I tended to grow up with a lot of guys, actually. It was strange growing up with a lot of guys, and so I would fight with them and try to be heard, because I want to be heard. And I think my mom was heard, but at the same time, I think because she was the face of the church, she had to look elegant, she had to look a certain way, she had to dress a certain way, and she had to always be on. And what I got to see was when she come home, you know, the wig came off and she might smoke a cigarette, you know, in public. You never did that. That was cool. Nobody never see you smoke a cigarette in public. You're a preacher's wife. You don't ever do that. You know, she never went out of the house without lipstick on. You always had to have something on your face. You always look nice because you don't know who you're going to run into. You better have some good underwear on because you don't know what can happen to you. And so those were really important things, but at the same time at home, you know, she didn't have to work outside the home, so I'm different in that sense. She was always there. She was at everything, you know, and so I take that back with, I don't have children, but I have exchange students, so I'm there for them when they need me. And so I love that part of my mom that, you know, I'm able to now be my own person and to stand up and not have to be silent all the time and quietly suffer while the men tell you what to do all the time. Not that men are bad, but I'm just saying sometimes you can just speak up. And I think that that's really what I think I do.
Mine's a little twist because growing up with my mother, her health things, my dad was my mother and father. So another little twist on that is I got a lot of what I am from my dad. I know that's different, you know, somehow, but a lot of my today is because of my dad. You know, my mother was my faith, my strength was my dad. My dad was a very giving person. He was used to anybody. He didn't expect me to be return. You know, so him being older, I was a black man. So he really wanted it. How to fix something, tools, cars, whatever. So he instilled in me to teach those families to my voice, I have two boys. So I was a single mother for 6 years. So I would say, yeah, I got a lot of things. So, you know, I love my mother to death. I thank my mother. I'm strength, but, you know, I thank my mother, but, you know, yeah.
I'm learning a lot, and I'm so grateful for everyone to share your experiences and how you grew up and what are the things that now you're doing. And that question is so tricky because it's like, what are you doing different? It stuck to me what you said of my mom, that she opened pathways for me doing things that I'm doing. So I don't know if it's different or not. I think depending on who listens to me, that will say, oh, that's different, or maybe it's not all. Everyone has done that, the same thing. But I do now appreciate more is she did different things that were not expected at that time in life. She, in Monterrey, we used to, it was very, very traditional, very, very close community that if you were married or if you trying to marry with someone that was not from Monterrey, it was like, who's this outsider? And my dad was an outsider. He was from a different state. And that was, what is she doing? Like, so my mom did broke up many things that now I'm never with her. From the US. Why are you marrying someone from America? Like it was, so those things, so it's not doing different things. I think it helped. It helped me feel free to do the things that I was following in my heart. I do. My mom also, I think, gave space. I think we, as gave a space to my dad as well to be that father, not only probably a
provider, an authority. He definitely wasn't an authority, and I appreciate that, but he was more than that. And we see it right now of how he is with our girls. He's the grandfather, and he really takes care even more than sometimes my mom in some ways. So I think she gave him space, and that helped me to find a person, a partner, not only in life, but he's my partner in business, but a partner that really enables the dynamic for him to thrive as a father, as a husband, as a human being, and for me to thrive in a way that I can do. So I think that question of doing different, I don't know, I'm trying to find it, but it's more of finding that communion to do and thrive together, not as even a family or a community, as women, like how can we support each other? How can we really help each other to grow and express our emotions? And that's what I've learned. I think my mom was very, she was like, no, everything's okay. And sometimes things are not fine. It's okay. Like if they're not fine, it's better to say, you know what, this is a mess, and I feel like this. And what I would say, I'm teaching our daughters, where I'm blessed that we have 2 girls. It's a lot of responsibility because I want to give them that strength of it's okay to feel that way, and you can express it, and you have the power to express it, and you have the right to do it. So I think that's at least what I'm trying to live with myself, with a team, with anyone that I work with as well, is if something is uncomfortable to you, speak up. Like, it's okay. It should speak up. And we as women, we support each other, and we can create that, I think, but that has been thanks to, sorry, my Spanish game. That has been thanks to generations behind us that have fought for us, or at least me, to feel more comfortable in speaking up. So I'm grateful for women.
Even though I learned a lot of great things from my mom, I also know there was a lot of things that, could have been done better. But she did the best of what she can. She did a great job. My mom is amazing, and I always say that. But one thing I would always tell her, like, man, I want to be just like you when she grew up, and she would always say, no. I want you to be better than me. And if you have kids later on in life, I want them to be better than you. So it was always like, we're not perfect. This is what we're given, and I want to see you better than that. I want to see you, like, take what you have, give it to God, and watch Him multiply it. It was always, she knew she wasn't perfect, and she progressed, I want to tell you, a huge leap from where she grew up and how she grew up with zero affection, like none. And for her to show so